Hello everyone, welcome to the Undercut, the post-race pod for your 2024 Canadian Grand Prix. What a race that was,
It
Jacko
was a
boy.
good race. It was a good race. I enjoyed it. Interchangeable conditions. We thought we were having a point where we were going to go dries quite early on, and then no one gambled. And then it was back to inters because we had like 5 minutes of rain, and then it did go dry, but the pit lane was wet. And then we had safety cars spinning left, right, and centre. Oh, loved it.
Yeah, it was everywhere. I mean, I'd say three talking points, but like there's definitely more that we need to talk about. So I think
Yeah.
we should just get straight into it then, shall we? With the driver ratings. Let's rate the drivers. I mean, might as well. We'll end up talking about everything anyway, I think.
Yeah.
So let's just get straight to it. There's so much to talk about. First up, obviously, 20th, Logan Sargent.
It was the first one out.
Yes. He was the first one out. The first of many.
Yeah.
By the end.
His qualifying performance, 13th. For Sargent, it's a 4.
Yeah.
For
Might even be a 5. Might even be a 5.
No, well, that's not that. If he gets Q3, it's 5.
Yeah.
It's a 4. But then the race, he just capitulated. You could see that he was just not at the level of all the other drivers
No, yeah.
in the conditions, and you have to be.
Yeah.
And he just dropped it, sent in the wall, brought out a safety car.
You have to remember he made that mistake as well before he ended up going out of the race as well. So
Yeah.
I think his inexperience shone through. His lack of ability compared to other drivers shone through, and I don't think he's cut out for Formula One. I'm only giving him a 2.
I'm giving him a 2. I think the quality saved him.
Yeah. Driver ratings obviously out of 5. 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, 0
Unless
if it's an
Magnussen.
absolute stinker. Yeah, unless you're Magnussen. I'm giving him a 2 only because his qualifying was great, but
Yeah.
his race just, if he did that in the dry, it's a 1. But considering it was wet conditions and obviously everyone struggled,
Yeah.
I'll sort of
You
let
could
him
give
off.
him some leniency.
Yeah, we'll give him some leniency. At 19th, Charles Leclerc.
Now, none of this was Charles's fault apart from the poor quality.
And even
In-
then,
In the race, he had engine problems. The Ferrari just wasn't firing up. They put him on hards while it was raining.
yeah.
It was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was a complete and utter nightmare for Ferrari and Charles. And I'm going to give him a 2 because that quality was that bad.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a 2 as well, but not for that reason. I think I can't give him a 3 because a 3 indicates that it's average. And an average weekend for Ferrari is 4th or 5th. Good quality, decent points. And that quality, as Fred Vasseur alluded to, wasn't their fault. It was Ferrari's fault, but it wasn't the driver's fault. Both Charles and Carlos didn't have the pace because the Ferrari was set too much up for the race. And then obviously in the race, they got stuck in traffic. Interchangeable conditions definitely didn't help them either. So it was just a mess for Ferrari this weekend.
It was a huge mess for Ferrari this weekend.
Yeah.
It's a Ferrari of old.
It was a Ferrari of old. Some of the older problems creeping in.
Yeah.
But speaking of 2s and 1s, someone will definitely give a 1 to is 18th Sergio Perez.
Oh, this guy, man. This guy.
So he signed a new contract, and in my predictions, I gave the flop of the weekend to Sergio Perez, and I think I might have be spot on there with that one, with that call.
I'm not gonna lie. It's a pretty easy call with the run that he's on at the moment.
Yeah, but to flop that much, gets a new contract.
Not even
out in
you
Q1.
thought he was flopping that much.
No, I didn't, which is why I got it spot on. So I'm looking at my notes here, by the way. The last 3 weekends I've given Sergio Perez a 1.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well,
I didn't think he was that bad.
That's because Max won Imola, Perez went out in Q2 and only got like 10th.
Yeah.
Monaco, he went out in Q3, and granted the crash wasn't his fault, but you wouldn't have been in that position if he actually made it out of Q1.
No, absolutely not.
And then he's gone out in Q1 in Canada.
Yeah.
and dropped it in the race on his own accord. And now he's got a 3-place grid penalty for Spain because of rejoining the track with an unsafe car.
Yeah, so it's just a full-on stinker for
Fuckery.
Sergio Perez.
And if he doesn't make it out of Q1 in Spain, that puts him last on the grid pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. I expect him to make it out Q1 in Spain. Spain, as we'll get to in our Spain preview, Spain is very much going to be a Red Bull circuit, as it will.
You'd think, wouldn't you? Yeah.
So you'd expect Perez to be back up there in the top 6 at least. So we'll see, won't we?
But yeah, it's a
we'll
couple
see.
Weeks away.
17th, Alexander Albon. I feel so bad for Albon.
This crash wasn't his fault.
No.
That's it. He was having a really good race. He had a good quality.
Fantastic race.
Fantastic race. Where was he before the crash? He was on the fringe of the top 10, wasn't he?
He was Well, it was that interchangeable with the conditions and the pit stops and then people gambling. I genuinely could not tell you net position he was when he went out. Like,
I think
accustomed to the pit stops.
I think he was around 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th sort of area.
He was in that little gaggle of the Alpines, Hulkenberg, Sainz. He was in that.
Yuki, yeah.
Yeah, he was in that. He was fighting for points. He was fighting for points. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, for me, this is going to be probably one of the few times I do this, but I'm going to give Albon a 4.
I'm giving him a 4.
I would give
genuinely
if he doesn't retire there and he scores points, it's a 5.
If he gets but you can't guarantee he was going to get points.
Exactly, so it's a 4. It's such a shame because it was such a good weekend for Albon.
He was having a good weekend, yeah.
Williams in general were having a strong weekend until the race. So,
yeah, they were having a pretty good weekend until the race, and then it all went bad.
Yeah, but
this is a lot of drivers that went out, you know.
It is a lot of. We're still on the retirees.
Oh my god.
16th, Carlos Sainz.
Oh well, this man, he got out qualified by Charles, and he dropped it on his own and took out another car.
Yeah.
Now, granted, qualifying, as we know, it was the Ferrari, not the drivers. But if you're giving Charles a 2, do you have to give Sainz a 1?
I'm giving Sainz a 2 only because I give Charles a high 2. I give Sainz a low 2. It's sort of like if Ferrari didn't have their issues, let's say Sainz has just made a mistake, and Charles has scored decent points. You go, well, he hasn't absolutely binned it, and he had a good qualifying. It's a 2, right? Whereas we've been giving 1s to Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, who have done absolutely horrifically bad all weekend on different occasions. I don't think it's. I think 80% of this weekend isn't Sainz's fault, apart from the mistake is his fault, obviously. But 80% of the weekend isn't his fault. I don't think so.
The thing is, though, at some point, it is kind of also the drivers. Like, Fred's always going to say it's not the drivers, it's the car. Fred's always going to say that.
Yeah,
but there's got to be. You still expect that little bit of magic. You're in a Ferrari, for God's sake. You shouldn't be being out qualified by both RBs and a Williams, and both Aston Martins, both Mercedes, both McLarens and Max. Like, you should be in the top 10. Regardless whether you've set your car up more for a race or not. At least one of them should have been. Neither of them are. So it is still partially driver error. It is. No matter how much Fred wants to sugarcoat that it's the car and not the drivers. It is still, the driver should still be able to do it. They're in a Ferrari, for fuck's sake.
I'm also going to point out as well, Sainz was running.
This is coming off a weekend where they've pretty much, Charles especially, dominated Monaco.
Yes, it is. It is, which is such a contrast.
So, and then obviously Sainz got out qualified by Charles, so it's worse than Charles. Charles was actually beating Sainz in the race with an engine issue, which what's Sainz messing about with there after starting next to Charles. And then he drops it, takes another driver out as well as himself, It's a 1 for me.
You see, you've encompassed a lot of the issues there that I've put on Ferrari, not Carlos. I don't think that's Carlos's fault. So I'm giving him a 2 for that reason. You can have that opinion, but I'm not. I can't.
Yeah. I know you're putting it on Ferrari, and I think it is on Ferrari to some extent.
I think it is.
No, I don't think it all is. It can't all be. It can't all be. I think Fred's come out as a team principal and said, it's the car, not the drivers. Rightly so. You knew he was going to do that. But there is a point where they're in a Ferrari. These are 2 of the best drivers on the grid by a mile. People are saying Charles is a future world champion. Should be. People are saying he's top 3 drivers on the grid. To a point, it's a Ferrari. Even if you'd set up for the race, you should still make Q3. You should. But it's a Ferrari, especially with the pace where they dominated Monaco. They had the pace in Imola. They've had the pace in Miami. They've been there.
That's fair enough, but I could also use that exact same point and spin it the other way and say, well, that's a testament to how bad the Ferrari was, because look at the season Charles and Carlos are having. They are clearly no slouches in the title race, in the Constructors' Championship. They aren't just going to have both a really poor weekend like that. Both of them being so close to each other, but also being so poor at the same time, tells me a lot more about Ferrari than it does about their individual performances.
I know.
So if it was them...
I agree that it was the car to a point.
No, I don't think it's to a point. I think it's to the end. I think both of them going out in Q2. No. What are the chances both of them have a poor weekend like that at the same time after the season that they've had? Coming off Charles's win in Monaco. It can't be. It's just got to be all the Ferrari. It has to be.
I don't think the car was great. I don't think the car was great at all. And I think it was a lot to do with Ferrari. But I think there is some blame you have to put onto the drivers. You can't just excuse that it's completely not the drivers, it's all the car.
I blame Sainz for the crash, and that's where most of my criticism.
Sainz was having a shocking race.
Before Ferrari were having a shocking race.
No, I know Ferrari were having a shocking race, but before the whole calamity issue of Charles' engine started going dry, then the hards for the rain, you got to remember, Charles was still fringe points. He was 10th. He was running in 10th. Yeah, Carlos was down in 15th, 16th.
Yeah, he was.
So Charles was on the fringe of the points. Carlos was that bad. He was down with Perez.
I listen. I'm not gonna be too harsh. I think it's just an off weekend for Ferrari. And once again, but anyway,
1 for Sainz.
I'm sticking with 2. Someone that is getting a 1 from me is 15th place Zhou Guanyu. Now, the fact that there's been so many retirees and Zhou is 15th makes this seem a lot better than it is. But I'm going to explain why I'm giving him a 1. He's crashed twice in practice. He's cost the team money. He's then got out-qualified by his teammate in a grid that's so close that saw the Ferraris not even make it to Q3 by a second. He's been out-qualified by Bottas by a second, right? In a car that is probably the worst on the grid, and when there's so much going on, he needs to be doing better.
Yeah.
The Ferrari's off the pace. You've got to be there. A second of your teammate is not acceptable. He's then also had the worst race out of anyone to survive the calamity. Did he finish the race?
Yeah,
I think he did finish. He finished the race.
I think he finished it a lot.
He's the only one to get lapped. It's not good enough. It is not good enough. It's a 1. He's had an absolute stinker of a weekend. The only thing that sugarcoats anything for Guan Yu Zhou is that so many people retired. If no one retired in this race, Zhou finishes dead last, and not by a small margin either. He finishes last by a lot.
He does, yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm not arguing with you. It's a 1.
I just had to have a little rant about Zhou. Zhou needs to pick it up, man. He really, really needs to pick it up.
He does.
It's not good enough at all.
He does.
14th is Yuki Tsunoda. Now, it was looking so promising for Yuki, wasn't it?
It was looking good, wasn't it?
It was.
But I think the mistake was they stayed on them worn inters, didn't they?
Yeah.
They didn't pit under that first safety car for fresh inters like everyone else did, and that was the mistake.
Well, he was
Because
still.
he was still while the track was wet, it was fine. It's when it started getting dry, he just dropped and dropped and dropped.
Well, we got to remember he was still. He was still in front of Ricardo in the dry phase, and then he beached it and made a mistake, and that's what dropped him down to 14th.
Oh yeah, he went off, didn't he?
And that cost him the points. He was in the point.
The fact that he spun,
and he almost clotted the wall by trying to go around the bollard.
I mean that's down to the grass being as wet as it was.
Yeah.
That wasn't on Yuki.
No, I think it was on Yuki, because Yuki should have gone straight over the grass and instead of trying to make the bollard.
Yeah, but it's the race direction instructions.
Yeah, but come on. If you're a driver, you know exactly how the car's going to react. And you try and do that. That's your fault.
He obviously thought he was going to make it. It is the instruction of the FIA. If you think you're going to make it, you got to try and do it.
And it is his mistake still. So.
But that's just... Show's just fucked it then, hasn't he? The fact that he still finished behind Yuki.
Yeah, I know! I know! Yuki beached it with like 2 laps to go, and he still finished in front of Zhou. It's a 2 for Yuki Tsunoda for me. He had a brilliant qualifying.
He had a good quality.
And he was it was about to be a 5, but the fact that he's made a mistake with so little laps to go, running in the points, could be double points for RB, and he's ruined his whole race in a matter of just one mistake. It knocks him down so many points for me. And I mean, I'm looking at my scores for Yuki. 3 5s in the last 5 weekends as well. Man is on
he's having a good season. You're going to have a couple of off races, aren't you? I mean, let's see if he bounces back in Spain. I would expect he will.
Yeah, I expect he will. 13th is Valtteri Bottas.
You can't fault Bottas starting in the pit lane.
No, yep. Started in the
Got
pit
himself lane. In the mix.
Yep.
Qualifying wasn't amazing, but that car wasn't amazing. At least he was there with other people.
Yep.
Do you give Bottas a 3?
I'm giving him a 3 just because he's driving a tractor.
He's literally rinsing the car.
He's driving a tractor and he's 10 seconds off points.
He's rinsing the car to be fair to. He's kept it on track, kept it clean. There was never any moment where we cut to Bottas off a track or skidding around anywhere.
No, I can't remember a mistake that he made.
No.
He was just driving.
Now, clean and chilled. Done Bottas things.
Done Bottas things.
Yeah.
12th is Kevin Magnussen.
Now, at the start of this race.
It's 5.
This man was flying.
He's turned into prime Ayrton Senna at the start.
The wet call was ridiculous.
Yeah, Haas, they got it spot on, didn't they, at the start?
They did, but I think if a George or Max, gone onto wets, they would have got himself a pit stop gap.
Oh, yeah, easily. Easily, yeah.
I think the fact that they started down the order and then they had to switch to inters with Kevin, Hulkenberg didn't. It just did not help him at all.
No, it didn't.
But it's what it is.
You just think, don't you, someone in the top 10 started on the wets. We could have seen a completely different Grand Prix.
Alonso, a Hamilton, one of the McLarens, George or Max.
Even Ricciardo.
Yeah, they would have been up the road.
Yeah, gone. So I mean, yeah, it's for me, it's a 3 from Magnussen.
Yeah,
he's done well.
He had an okay quality, to be fair to him.
Yeah, he's had a decent quality. He's had a decent race for what he, for the strategy that Haas put him on. He did exactly what he needed him to do. It's just a shame that obviously didn't work out past then. But he's finished 4 tenths behind his teammate, so they're pretty much neck and neck.
They're neck and neck, innit?
As for Nico Hulkenberg, who finished 11th, I don't know. I want to hear what are you giving Hulkenberg? Because I'm very conflicted on what to give him this weekend.
He's had a good race to get himself back up ahead of Magnussen.
Yeah,
but he had an absolute stinker of a quali.
Yeah,
he went out in Q1. That's not Hulkenberg things.
No, it's not.
It's a 1 in quali. It's a 3 race. It's a 2, I feel.
Yeah, I was gonna give him a 3 because he had a good race, good
he had
recovery.
But it's as you expect where the Haas should be.
Yeah,
The
and
wets helped him.
Yeah, the wets helped him, and yeah, the
But
quali was stinky.
Yeah,
Stinky. After how many times has he got into Q3 this season? He's got a fair bit, hasn't he?
a lot.
It's been a fair bit. So
and he does like Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a hard 2 to give, but it's a 2.
Yeah. 10th, Esteban Ocon.
Oh.
Now, controversially, I mean, coming off the back of Monaco, Ocon has done exactly what he needed to do to sort of prove the team wrong.
Kind of prove the team wrong, but kind of put his name in there that I'm still a decent driver, can keep it on the track, I'm quick, and any other team, a Haas, an Audi, someone like that, if you want me, I'm here.
Yeah, it's a 4 for Esteban Ocon, I think. Qualifying obviously wasn't great, but
if you're giving Ocon a 4, let's just include both, because Gasly's in ninth.
It's a 5, Pierre Gasly.
You're giving Gasly a 5?
I'm giving Gasly a 5.
Where did they both start?
Ocon went out in Q1, and I think he started last because of the Saubers, and then Gasly went out in Q2.
Ocon got the penalty, didn't he? No, Ocon got the penalty.
Yeah, so my thinking for Ocon is I'd usually, because he went out in Q1 and he's been out qualified by his teammate, I'd be like, oh well, that's a 3. He's got out raced and he's been out qualified and out raced, right? But Ocon came into this weekend, not planning on. He's even said in interviews that their strategy this weekend is they know they've got the penalty. They're not focusing on quali runs. They're not focusing on quali sim in the practice sessions. They're focusing purely on race pace, trying to make sure they maximize the race because they know that they're going to be down the order. So I think Ocon came into this weekend knowing that he was going to go out in Q1. I think he knew. I think he knew that was I think the plan was to just focus on the race, focus on getting the strategy right. And that's exactly what they did, and they succeeded in their plan, and they got double points. And I think for that, he gets 4. He's done the bit, and Gasly gets 5 because he's out-qualified him, out-raced him, and he's got 2 points, which are crucial for Alpine in the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, that's fair. Can't argue with that.
So, I don't know. Would you give Gasly a 5?
You got to give Gasly an extra rating over Ocon.
Yeah.
But then the only way you could do that is you give Ocon a 3 and Gasly a 4.
Yeah.
It's a very lenient 5.
Lenient 5, but I think deserving.
It's a lenient 5 because I think we need to get out the stipulation in our heads that Alpine are dog. Alpine are no longer dog.
Not as dog as they were.
Alpine are comfortably on the pace of Williams, Haas. They're ahead of Stake. They're on pace now. They are. It's as simple as that.
RB are just slightly ahead.
RB are just slightly ahead, but all the others are together apart from Stake. And you now expect Alpine to pick up points. That's an expectation now.
Yep. But good result for them. That's crucial points. Daniel Ricciardo, who finished 8th, started 5th.
You knew he was going to drop down the order. You had Hamilton and Alonso behind him, and Stroll.
Yeah. Who all, ironically, were the only ones that finished in front of him that didn't start in front of him.
Yeah, you knew they would overtake him. Especially Alonso and Hamilton. You knew that one.
Yeah.
He got 8th. That's probably where we would have guessed them to be.
Yep.
Didn't do much wrong. Had a decent quali, got Q3. Very good quality, really.
Yep, out-qualified his teammate. And for me...
Coming into a weekend where he's under a lot of pressure. Hard conditions. He's shown his class.
I've got to give him a 5. I genuinely have.
Not, to be fair.
And he had the penalty in the race as well, and he still managed to finish.
He had the 10-second time penalty. Stop going.
And he stopped, and he managed to finish in front of that pack still.
I mean... The penalty was served under safety car.
Yeah, but still, that extends
No,
your pit stop
no,
to
I know it does extend the pit stop time.
yeah
However, it made it a little bit
easier.
easier.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
But
but no, good weekend for him.
a good weekend for Ricardo. It's a 5 from me.
Yeah,
Seventh, Lance Stroll. I tell you what, though, Lance Stroll's had a good weekend.
you can't. He kept it very clean.
He's had a very, very, very good weekend.
He's kept it very clean. To be fair to him,
He has. He's kept it very clean.
I didn't even see a mistake for him. To be fair,
No, I didn't either.
and
And
that's fun Stroll like.
exactly, I'm going to group both the Aston Martins in together and give them both 3s. I think.
I think as well because it's expectations.
Yeah, I mean, in a race where both Ferraris are nowhere, Perez is just bottling it. There's so many retirements. Aston Martin have to be picking up those points. They have to be in the that range of close to the front runners. Obviously, not expecting to catch or pass them, but keeping it in front of the mid pack, and that's exactly where they were, both of them.
Yeah.
So both 3s for them for me, Alonso and Stroll.
Very good pair of them. This is where you need Aston Martin to be.
It's where you need him to be. 5th, Oscar Piastri.
He was having it. He's had a decent quali.
Yep.
Level teammate. He was with his teammate all race, bless him.
Yeah, he was.
I think them mediums were just gone at the end.
Yeah, they were. They were just absolutely ruined.
Yeah, and they couldn't keep up. The two Mercedes being on fresh.
Yeah.
He was ahead of the Aston Martin still, I mean.
Yeah. And we know Oscar isn't the greatest on his tyres.
No.
So it probably didn't help.
But is that the average weekend for McLaren now? Have we got a... Is that what we expect? He's not beat his teammate in anything. And Big Fish 5th and Lando's 2nd. Is it a 3?
Yeah, I've just given him a 3. I think he's not beating his teammate, but he's done what McLaren need him to do.
By no means is it a bad weekend for Oscar then.
No, not at all. He's. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, like you said, you've got to keep the. You got to take into account that George and Lewis were on fresh tires as well. Max is obviously always ridiculously quick, and we don't expect him to beat Norris, but be close to him, and that's what he was all weekend. So.
Exactly.
It's a 3 for Oscar. 4th, Lewis Hamilton. It's a good recovery in the race, if I'm honest.
He had a shocking quali.
Oh yeah, stinking quali.
You say stinking. He was still only 2/10 off pole, but
when
it's that
your
close,
teammates on pole, man, like.
I know. I mean, you look at it in Sky Sport, like obviously George did have that toe from Albon.
Yeah.
Which helped him a little bit, which probably gave him the pole over Max, was that little toe. But he still would have been ahead of Lewis because it wasn't a major toe.
No.
But it's a good recovery from Lewis. I mean, he came out himself and said it was his worst race of his career.
Yeah. For me, it's a 3. I'm going straight down the middle of Hamilton. It's a 4 race. 4 race because he recovered really well, beat Oscar. It's a 2 qualifying. Put them together, it's a 3.
Give him another 5 laps. I reckon he has George and Norris.
I do as well, just off the basis that the
mediums would have gone off.
I mean, personally, I think if there was another 5 laps, I reckon George gets Max and Lando on the fresh mediums, and Hamilton gets closer.
I think Russell's mediums go off, and I think Hamilton gets George.
I don't know. I mean, you got to remember Norris is. Because George would be converging on the front runners because he had such fresher mediums.
Well, George had 3-4 laps fresher than Norris. And you could see the Mercedes gain like 2 seconds on the last lap on Norris.
Yeah, the convergence was happening. I think he would have got Max as well, personally.
I think he would have got Max, but I think Lewis would have got Max and then probably George last lap. We could have seen a Mercedes battle if we had 5 more laps.
Damn it, 10 more laps, man, and we can have a battle for the race win. Damn it. George Russell then finished 3rd, started obviously on pole position. I don't think anyone expected him to win this race.
It was a 5 quali because he got that pole.
Yeah.
It was a 5 quali. It was a 4 race. I think he made a couple of errors in there, especially when trying to battle with Max and Lando. He made a couple of mistakes, and I think that's kind of what cost George. That's what's the thingy with George. He makes too many mistakes too often.
The issue I'm having here is that I'm getting the vibe that it's a 4 for George. But when you look at the expectations and what we've been giving the Mercedes for finishing where they've been finishing, that's a 5. Yeah. Like it's a 5 result. Like Mercedes are nowhere near podiums.
No, but the problem was this weekend. We saw through they had pace.
Yeah, I think that's why. I'm going to give George a 4. I feel bad because this should be a 5. And I think if George did this around Monaco or Barcelona, I think it's a 5. But because Mercedes had pace and also Ferrari weren't there, it made the podium a little bit more accessible.
I think I just can't get over it. He didn't make like catastrophic errors, George didn't. But he just had little niggly mistakes on corners, which ended up someone being up the back of him, overtaking him, letting someone through, i.e. Max. He needs to work on that a lot more to be a world champion, essentially.
I'm not.
He's not.
I do agree that
George Russell won't become a world champion if he doesn't sort these little niggly mistakes in a season.
I do agree that's the case with George at the moment, but for me, I'm not too focused on them around this weekend because every driver had mistakes.
I think they did pretty much. A lot of them did, but you got to think if he didn't have these literally like niggly mistakes, he's ahead of Norris. Realistically, could he have been challenging Max? Probably, because Max wasn't up the road by any means.
I don't know.
Max was there for the taking.
Max got lucky with the pit stop. That's all I'll say. But I mean, he did. But right, we'll get to Max actually because I've got a controversial score.
We're on Norris.
Lando Norris. He's had a
4.
Yes, it's a very high 4 though. It's almost a 5, but it's not. I don't. For me, I'm scoring this race for Lando Norris as if I'm scoring it as if he's won. The reason why is because he was screwed over by the safety car. So, because he was 10 seconds up the road. If that safety car doesn't come out, Lando is clear.
He did get screwed over by the safety car. Well, he'd already gone through in the safety car. It's a difficult one.
He's screwed over by the safety car.
But in saying that, I think McLaren fucked it by bringing him in.
No, because he would have been a sitting duck. They couldn't have not brought
No,
him.
I think he was I think he could have done another 2 laps. I think he still had the pace over Max on them inters.
Yeah, but the others came in for fresh inters, and he was still on his old ones.
No. When they swapped the inters for the dries.
No, he got screwed over by the safety car before that. He got
I know he got screwed over by the safety car, but they all came in for the dries, didn't they? And Lando was first by like 22 seconds.
Oh yeah, no, Max was gaining on that lap. Remember the last sector 3, he gained 5/10.
Yeah, and then Norris was going a second. So Max was 22 laps, and then by the end of the next 2, it was like 21.8. Yeah, Norris was getting away because of the first sector. The last sector Max was gaining, but Norris was gaining more in the first sector. So it was kind of, I think 2 more laps, Norris might have been okay on them inters.
Possibly. For me, it's down to the mistake. Not the mistake. The unluckiness with the. I mean, maybe he could have, but then again, that's also McLaren's call, and they've got all the data, haven't they? So I don't know. I'm scoring in the race for Norris as if he's won it because I think he deserved to. Obviously, got unlucky with the safety car, but with his quali, it's got to be a 4 because he had the pace to get on pole and didn't. Got beat by George and Max. Simple as that. So, right, Max Verstappen. This is going to be interesting.
He's won.
He's won.
He got second.
Yeah.
He did have a few errors. He didn't have the pace to get away, but he got it where it mattered. He got slightly lucky with safety cars and that.
Yeah.
It's not a 5.
I'm going to say it's a 5. I've got a reason, though. I have a reason. Because, right, we talked about this with Mercedes. How you've got to grade them based on the pace that they came into the weekend with, right?
Yeah, no.
So my point is that if this is Barcelona, or if this is Bahrain, or if this is a track where Red Bull have just looked completely gone, and Max is not pulling away, and Norris and Russell are on him, and there's points in the race where they're faster than him, and he's just by the skin of his teeth getting the same time as pole position, not even out, like if this, it's a 3 for Max, really. But the odds were stacked against Red Bull all weekend. Everyone's been talking about the curbs. The Red Bull's not got the pace. It's been shown with Perez that they're absolutely nowhere at certain points of the track. But Max Verstappen showed his class once again, showed how good he is, because he's able to, no matter what, somehow go equal with George Russell for pole position, and then somehow still wins the race. You still got to remember, despite the mistake he did make in the race where he went over turn 1, he managed to keep the gap within what he needed to be, so that when the safety car did come out, he could make that. He could make the pit stop. He could stay within, and he's controlled that race.
He did well. He did very. I'm not taking anything from Max. For me, I look at other 5s that we've given Max this season, and I know that the Red Bull pace, it wasn't really there.
No.
Like, it was competitive, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't clear first like it normally used to be. But I don't know, it just, this race, he seemed shaky. We obviously had the big error in the first corner. There were a couple little niggly errors. There was a couple of moments where it looked like he was about to be swallowed up by George and Oscar, but then the safety car came out, so he got fortunate with that one. Max almost dropped down to 4th in this race.
Yeah, he did. He got fortunate with the safety car. As did everyone behind Lando.
They got very fortunate with that. So, I get a 5. I can understand the 5 because of the pace of the Red Bull, but I am going to give him a 4 personally.
That's
because fair. He just looked not the Max Verstappen we know.
That's fair. I mean, I'm looking more towards Perez, and I'm thinking,
but
Sergio Perez is no slouch.
At what point? Well, I think he is. I think. Honestly,
Perez catching strays, man.
No, honestly, I genuinely don't think Sergio Perez is a top team driver.
Damn, that's an accusation.
No, I don't. I think he's a mid team driver. I think he's number 1 mid team driver. Don't get me wrong, but he's not a top team driver. He had problems at McLaren when he was at McLaren, and he's having problems at Red Bull. When he goes in a top car, he's shit. Simple as that.
Perez catching strays.
But put him in the midfield car, he'll maximise his point position. And I'm telling you now, if he was in the Aston Martin or in the Alpine or in a mid-team car, he does better than he did this weekend in that Red Bull.
It's interesting you say that, because I actually believe you.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so I think that's our driver ratings. I mean, who was the flop of the weekend? It's Sergio Perez.
You can't go against Perez. He was shocking.
I'd argue maybe Joe is a shout.
But I think it's just that Red Bull.
Yeah.
He binned it himself. He was nowhere near the points anyway. He haven't made any ground.
Yeah, and we also have to remember as well. I think Ferrari is a shout as a whole.
Ferrari as a whole, yeah.
Ferrari's a team.
Perez was just shocking. He was too shocking.
Yeah. And who is your star of the weekend? Who's the one that
Ricciardo.
impressed you the most? Yeah, I'd agree with that. Daniel Ricciardo, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, that is it for today's podcast. We very much enjoy giving our driver ratings. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time.